Here's Brody Brazil.
I can't believe it. It's another video here on the YouTube channel where my choice of shirt, my clothing, is appropriately matching the color theme and scheme of this video. So a while back, I talked about how potentially the Washington Commanders could be returning to the RFK Stadium site. A company had come out with some amazing renderings. By the way, those were entirely unofficial, but it was a concept. It was to kind of give you the visuals of what a lot of people were talking about, this potential that the Commanders could come back to the RFK site and play their football games in the District of Columbia proper. And so now it's taking one step closer because there is a deal, a $3.7 billion deal still to be voted on. It's not a done deal. It's not official yet. But the mayor of D.C. is proposing this. Obviously, the football team is behind this. But there is kind of some question, like $3.7 total billion. What's the actual public cost of this? I don't know if a lot of people care the total cost. They just want to know what is the public cost of this stadium. Let me give you the quick project overview. $3.7 billion that would, yes, bring the NFL back to a site where it played for many decades. RFK Stadium, conveniently located, has a lot of history, is definitely the preference of Washington football fans. So there's kind of a sentimental aspect beyond all of this, right? We'll talk money, we'll talk about politics, we'll talk about budgets and responsible public subsidies in just a second. But there is that overarching sentimental feeling about, all right, we'd love to get this football team back to where they could and should be playing their games location-wise. DC's Mayor Muriel Bowser and the team are very much united in trying to make this happen. Mayor Bowser is behind this. The mayor held a press conference the other day. She's very excited. She shared some renderings. She shared that one image that I just showed you to kind of get people visually excited about this. Problem is, it still needs to be voted on, and the rest of the council, they're not as much behind this as the mayor is because she's kind of the one that negotiated all this with the team, and nobody else was really included. And so they feel excluded. And so there are instantly some city council members who are like, I'm out because I didn't get a say in this. There are others who are very much on the fence because they're like, wait, all of this is new information. This is all new to me. I didn't get a say in this. I just need some time to let this be sorted out, let the dust settle on this. Eventually, they'll have a vote on this. And so we'll see when that is, who can be won over by then, and maybe what doesn't fly before then. Councilmember Charles Allen was quoted as saying this, quote, "This was a deal the mayor negotiated without the council. So I think it's entirely appropriate that you'll see the council now look to leave its mark on any proposal before it comes up to a vote." Essentially, that's fine, you have a deal, but it's not just going to be passed like that. Even if it gets passed, there are some changes, some alterations to be made to it. Have you heard of Field of Schemes? Great website. I've had Neil DeMoss on the channel here before. Dare I say, friend of the channel. He does great work in covering all sorts of stadium situations and relocation potentials, does a lot of work on the business of sports, but specifically the premise of, hey, we want to build a new stadium. Here's what it's going to cost the team, but also here's what taxpayers are on the hook for. $500 million, as Neil points out, was the commitment from DC for infrastructure. But then Neil found the term sheet. Neil dug into the term sheet, which reveals that it's not just infrastructure like sewers and sidewalks. That infrastructure, actually, in the language of this deal, goes into the foundations of the stadium and stairs leading up to the stadium. Like, it goes to some of the actual stadium construction as well, too. The point is, things are kind of getting fudged a little bit, right? Kind of baked into this deal so that if you really don't pay attention, and like Neil is, maybe you wouldn't see this stuff, but he's obviously found it out. The stadium would be owned, per the term sheet, by the city, and that means team owner Josh Harris would avoid property tax. So it's another way that, well, the city doesn't have to pay itself property tax, and so neither would the football team's owner because the football team has no ownership in this. They would also pay a very, very low amount in rent. As in like $1 a year rent. You know that whole situation. It's basically free for 30 years on the stadium and on the land surrounding it that could be developed into the whole residential community, businesses, office space. You know how this goes with sports stadiums. They don't just build the stadium anymore. They build the stadium and they build everything around it. It's 180 total acres, and if you estimate, like Neil did, $6.6 million per acre, that means about $1 billion in free land development and control for the 30-year arrangement here that Josh Harris and the Commanders would have in terms of being in charge of this land. That is a free $1 billion of land for 30 years. DC gets no stadium operating revenue. So you're thinking, all right, well, if they're the ones that are going to own it, they should probably profit off this somehow. Nope. DC gets no stadium operating revenues, which means no naming right revenues, no sponsorship revenues, no ticket revenues, no revenues from merchandise, parking, food and beverage, for NFL games or any other thing. The Taylor Swift concert, you know they're going to host in this domed stadium. Nothing. So that's why Neil is pointing out here, this may not be the best deal for DC, and it kind of totals up to an amount that you may not have believed. Parking and seat licenses are also exempt from sales tax, so you would think, all right, DC's going to collect taxes there. Nope, they're not going to get anything from that. Sales taxes at the stadium, they don't go back to DC. They go back into the RFK Campus Reinvestment Fund. Essentially all the things that will need to be paid for with this site and the stadium. So at least it's taking care of itself. But again, that's not taxpayer money that's going back to DC at all. They're getting basically nothing for this. And so that puts estimates of the value of this proposition and the cost of this to the public. We said it was a $3.7 billion deal. Neil is estimating here that the public subsidies alone on this are anywhere between $2.5 and $3 billion. So what do you think about getting a brand new NFL stadium and the land surrounding it, total control? You get to develop it. You get to collect all the revenue. I say all you have to put in is $700 million, but that's not a lot when there are many billions to be made over a lot of years, and all you have to do is upfront $700 million. I'm saying these things like they're trivial amounts. They're not. But this would be the largest public subsidy, $2.5 to $3 billion, anywhere in the United States. I feel like the biggest one right now is in Nashville with the Titans' new Nissan Stadium. Are they still calling it Nissan Stadium, the new one? They got about $2 billion in public subsidies to build that brand new football stadium, which is under construction for the Titans. But this would be maybe $500 million, even over that or more. So here are my takeaways. I mentioned before that this RFK site, it is sentimental. It probably deserves to be used again. I mean, that stadium, which is now being demolished piece by piece, they're not going to have an implosion. They're just taking it apart. It's going to take some time to take it down, but that site probably deserves something better than an empty, vacant, disintegrating stadium. It deserves the football team going back there and playing. It's about development, obviously, for the football team, though, where they play at FedEx Field. It's not optimal. It's never been a great stadium. Sure, they want to get a brand new stadium with all the bells and whistles, but make no mistake about it. This is not a stadium deal. This is a land deal. This is a real estate deal. For most teams, it's hardly about the venue anymore. They can always update and upgrade a stadium to a certain degree where they're at. They don't want to do that. They want the real estate surrounding this stadium. The city council right now, at best, because they weren't really a part of the deal making and setting the standards here, they seem split at best. Right now, I've read some reports that indicate if it were taken to a vote right now, it would definitely not pass. So we'll see what time brings and the back and forth and the negotiations on this term sheet. Can the public make sure that they're not on the hook for a certain amount? Or how about cost overruns? Here we are in 2025. And there's rising construction costs and material costs and inflation and tariffs. And now all this stuff becomes a whole lot more expensive and complicated. So how do you protect yourself if you're DC from this just ballooning way out of control once you've already started it? The term sheet calls for groundbreaking in 2026 and completion by 2030. It's a pretty ambitious schedule, gotta say. So we'll see what happens here. Will this be approved by DC's city council? Seems like the mayor's really pushing it. You got to be careful in those situations, but that's why it's taken to a vote among the entire city council to kind of protect taxpayers and maybe paying close to $3 billion publicly for this stadium. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. Love to hear from you and hear what you have to think about all this. Also, while you're down there, thumbs up on this video since you've made it here to the very end. I appreciate that. A thumbs up will help me, this channel, and this video. But speaking of this channel, you're subscribed, right? I don't need to remind you already, or again, right? To go down there, hit that subscribe button so I can definitely see you back here next time.